Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Free Our Mind Friday. This is Lei, your co-host.
And Julie, good to be here, y'all.
So today we'll be talking about social wellness and continuing our series on the different dimensions of wellness.
Yes, I'm very excited for this because we are just humans really just coexisting and trying to navigate through the world. So I'm excited that social wellness is our next topic for today. And with the weather getting better, I'm ready to socialize. I don't know about you, Lay.
I low-key been in hibernation, so
Right.
maybe I'm getting there.
The winter is for hibernation naturally. But when the spring is approaching, summer's around the corner, the sun's coming out, it's just also natural to get out there.
Absolutely. Well, let's get liberated.
We wanted to do a social wellness check in. And actually, this is really on topic just because Lay and I had our little check in this morning. So I really want to open up this space of just how you're doing with your social wellness, Lay, and just tell us all about, how you've been navigating through it, especially because you say you be hibernating as well.
Yeah, for me, it's been a very trying winter, a very trying winter. I will say that it's been a huge shift for me in the past couple months. At the end, okay, I'm about to get really personal and vulnerable, but I'm gonna just kind of keep it real.
Do it, do it. The honor
Um,
here.
yes, okay, y'all. So in 2022, the end of the year, I was dealing with a really heart-wrenching situation in my relationship and honestly experienced the biggest feeling of betrayal that I had ever experienced in my life. And it really negatively impacted my sense of self-worth and my confidence and war really deteriorated my sense of like just mental health, honestly, my mental health and my emotional health. And it got to a point where I could no longer tolerate the behavior that I was sort of enabling. And so I removed myself from my situation and I moved out and broke up with my partner. I spent 2023 just focused on myself and my work and my children and was single for the year, maybe kind of dated a little bit here and there, but nothing too serious. And at the end of 2023, I will say that, my partner was showing a lot of effort to just rebuild trust and rebuild our relationship. And I kind of took a leap of faith and was like, okay, we can try it again, and give it another try. And so I did that and we're doing that. But I have to be honest that it wasn't as easy as I thought it would be. Like one of the things that came up earlier that I was thinking when we were talking during our check in this morning is that forgiveness is not something that's sort of one and done, at
Mm-hmm.
least for me in my experience. That forgiveness is an ongoing practice because I will never forget those feelings and I will never forget what we went through.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to constantly and repeatedly make the decision to forgive the ways that that makes me feel. And especially in those moments when these sort of feelings come back up. And so I will say that, in this recent months as we've been kind of like rebuilding our relationship, it was really, really tough for me at first. And I had a lot of like anxiety and fear. But I am really, really, really grateful that my partner's just been super understanding and supportive about, our reunification.
Mhm.
And has been showing me a lot of grace. And I've been really striving to kind of think about and exercise what I can do to continue moving forward. And I will say, with all of that I've been through in the past 2 years or so, is that my greatest lesson related to social wellness has been that I cannot put my sense of self-worth in anybody else's treatment towards me, feelings toward me,
Mhm.
actions that may impact me. And I think it was really hard for me to not just realize that, but disassociate that with other people, especially because I can't lie, I'm a woman who who had, I don't know if I should say had or has, because it's something I'm actively working on, but like I grew up really neglected by my dad and without his presence for a really, really significant period of my time and still today. And so I think that left me with a sense of emptiness, at least when it comes to the presence of a man. And so I sought that out in my relationships. And I think I sought it out in a way that was not very healthy. And so, my dad's neglect of me really, I think, negatively impacted my attachment style. And so that's something I've actively been working on. And so instead of really putting my sense of self worth in my dependence for security and, having a sort of like provider, whether it's emotional security, financial security, physical security, is that I really shifted my mindset and my practice to disassociate that with other humans and attach it to God instead, and attach it to what I have control over and what I am doing and who I am. And
Mhm.
so I would say, just kind of big picture, summing it all up, is that where I'm at with my social wellness is really in a, I'm really in a transformative place, like at the peak of my transformation when it comes to the most important relationship in my life. Even having kids, I think there are a lot of single parents who rightfully so have the mindset of like kids first, nobody comes before my kids, right? But what I'm learning in a household, in a family, when you have kids with somebody else and you're still committed to that person as your partner, as your spouse, as your boyfriend, or whatever it is, the parents are the backbone of the family. They are the backbone of the household. So we're really learning to prioritize each other because we know in turn it's going to provide a more stable and a more secure household for our children.
Mhm.
And even before each other, we're both making sure that we prioritize and center not only our own health and our own wellness, but also like God as, for us, the most important, entity in our lives, being, people that are committed to our faith and spirituality in that way.
Mhm.
And I will say it's like really come a long way. So I'm also like really proud of where I'm at socially,
Yeah.
um, with those relationships. So yeah, that. And of course, I think, next to my partner, my biggest priority is tending to my kids and my relationship with them, because God, they are just so, like, they're so deviant and they starting to talk back and like
Ooh,
attitude and
get into that age.
I'm saying, and even throwing fits, right? And so I'm also being really challenged in how I respond and
Mhm.
how I work with my partner as, my teammate, to respond to them and kind of address when issues come up, especially having a blended family. So definitely in this place of peak transformation and just priority wise, like spending quality time with them regularly. But I will say I'm still kind of hungry for more like sisterhood and friendship
Mhm.
because I live so far from all my friends now and I don't get to see them a lot. Um, so that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, well, first off, I really want to say thank you for being so vulnerable to us. And it's really hard to sometimes get a little personal when I don't know who's listening.
Right. I'm
But
like, should I send this to him? Should I not?
no, because it is sometimes we think about socializing and maybe our world is like, go find your community, go out there, go out, hang out. But sometimes it's all like not really beautiful and sexy. It's sometimes a really big burden for people.
Hmm.
And I just really want to say thank
Hmm.
you again, just for being very vulnerable. And when we take this time to sometimes check in, it's kind of coming from an observer point and not just the thick of like the emotions that we're going through, but as like a friend kind of looking inside to our situations. And you should be celebrating the change and the transformation that you took away from that year, of you just working on yourself, working on your kids, working on work. It should be celebrated and honored in the fact that you've been able to welcome that partner back and build a foundation. So just definitely
Hmm.
snaps all around. And sometimes even just hearing about maybe partnerships or even kids, some what we don't understand is that we have certain things that we show to people that we really just trying to say, like, pay attention to me, or,
Hmm.
set some time for me. And in those spaces of maybe kids are throwing fits, like that's the most time that they should get your attention and your love,
Hmm.
because it could be something deeper. And we're human. We always show our ways to people, and it could be all different.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for hearing
And
me
I
and
do feel you
holding
on the
space.
sisterhood, girl. Everything will fall into place. We want to create a wellness session between us, and I'm so down for that. And even if I could go out there or you can come out here, whichever, we'll get your sisterhood on lock.
We gonna figure it out.
We're gonna figure it out. It does all
We'll
come into
figure it
play
out.
with the intention of putting it out there.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not too worried about it. Waiting patient, patient, but also proactive.
Right. I love it. And we definitely gonna get into that proactiveness today.
Oh, yes, that part.
We got a
Yes,
lot
let's
up our
definitely do
sleeve.
that. Yeah, thanks for hearing me and affirming me. How have you been in your social wellness?
Yeah, well, I definitely want to highlight of what I said about, sometimes socializing isn't just like the most sexy thing in the world, especially for me. Outside of COVID, I had a bunch of social anxiety, which I've never ever had before pre-COVID. And just getting out in the world, making conversations with people. I'm not gonna lie, I feel like COVID and just being around in my routine in my home kind of made me selfish in a way, just because I just wanted to make sure that I was tended to and like nothing else or whoever was around me. But getting back out there in the world, working, basically being forced to communicate with other people now, especially strangers, and the kind of work that we do as well. It made me think outside of myself a lot. And I can proudly say, I feel like I've been able to open up, make space for people, be honest with others, tend to my needs as well as tends to, others' needs. And I just been really rocking with the decisions I've been making, especially coming out of the holidays. I feel like I made so much space for family that when January hit, I was like, y'all, don't even hit me up or nothing. Like, I'm not doing anything with y'all. I was rotting away after New Year's, y'all. I didn't even want to text
Wait, don't say
nobody.
rotting. You gotta say ripening. You gotta call
Okay,
it
I was
ripening.
ripening because I don't know about you, but nah, ripening's kind of beautiful, but rotting was like, girl, you did not want to see me. But yes,
Because that social battery was a rundown.
oh, yeah, my social battery was negative. Couldn't find the charger either. I just I just needed that time. So all of January, I was just with myself, with my resolutions, with my
Hmm.
intentions, just doing what I want to do. And then in
That's
February,
good.
now I feel like I've opened myself up a lot to others. I was sharing with you like earlier that one of my big intentions was to water the relationships that were planted the past year. So I met a lot of new people with like the wellness work I do and just like the healing work I do. So I wanted to be very intentional about the friends that I, made and consistently are like talking to and tending to. And something that I've been doing is not technically always doing activities that I want to do a lot because to be real, y'all, I could kick it with you and just watch a movie and have snacks and like that's my cup of tea right there. But that's not everyone's cup of tea. It could be, but really just getting that sun on my face, getting my legs moving, that's just what I've been wanting to do lately. And I feel really good about it because it's like I'm paying attention to who I'm kicking it with as well as what they like. And I want to be able to meet them where they are. And I'm also have a lot of strength and guidance in myself that I won't ever go out of my comfort zone to just attend to somebody else, but in like the right comfortability because I get to grow in that area. So for example, this today, when y'all are listening to this, when this drops, I'm going to a Nicki concert. I'm gonna be a barb for the night.
Ooh,
I'm so excited. I haven't been
how
out.
fun.
I haven't been out in that kind of area and that kind of energy. So I'm very excited. I'm going with my cousin. And then on Saturday, I'm gonna go to hiking with my new friend. And I want to take, my dog out. I want to just go in nature. But I could be very flexible like that. Like I could be kicking it one night, like, hey, and then the second day I'm like, let's, ground ourselves. And that whole entire like schedule just makes me so happy. And then on Sunday, I'm going to have tea and garden with my older cousin. And I'm just really excited just because although they might look all different activities or different people, it still tends to an area of my heart that just makes me feel good. And I'm just really excited to just do it. And I've been really liking that I have full like capacity, but also being very intentional of my plans and my people that I'm surrounding myself with. And
Hmm.
as well as like possibly next week though, I'll be recharging like through my
Yeah.
cycle because my cycles are changing up. So like I planned it really good and really well. And just so I will avoid burnout or like social, like how I was feeling in the beginning of the year, y'all. So
Yeah.
I'm really feeling good. And there was a time where I didn't feel good about my social wellness and I felt very
Hmm.
insecure or hidden. But with a lot of
That's
work
real.
and intention, a lot, like I said, a lot of things just come into place when you're putting that
Hmm.
out there. Like
Hmm.
someone hears you, God hears you, the universe hears you, you hear you, and it's
Hmm.
constantly being brought up. So you could just act like how you want to, and everything will come.
Yeah. Yeah. Like that divine alignment for sure. I definitely feel you in the in terms of on one hand, you don't always feel good about it, and relationships are not always sexy,
Mm-hmm.
especially when there's conflict. But I do think that conflicts are an opportunity to deepen connection and deepen understanding and deepen relationships with people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and family is great. Like when you have those joyful moments and spaces and times to spend with family, that that definitely feels really fulfilling for me. And I know it was for you at a period of time too, but I'm glad you took the month of January to just recharge. Because I do remember
Yes.
you talking a lot about the holiday season, and you even hosted. You were hosting.
Yeah,
So
I
that's really
hosted
great too.
twice.
So
I hosted twice and went to all the family parties too.
all of them, yeah. I remember. I'm like, okay, I see you. I'm spending lots of family quality time. I ain't mad
Yeah.
at it. So
Yeah.
I'm definitely glad that you took that month of January, especially at the beginning of the year and after that period of time to just recharge.
Mm-hmm.
I love what you said about meeting people where they are, and
Mm-hmm.
not only meeting people where they are, but also knowing their place in your life. Like you might have some friends who are cool and chill to just kick it, relax, kick up your feet and watch a movie. But you also might have that friend or family member who's more down to hit the function and go to the concert and
Mm-hmm. Right.
turn up a little bit and have fun, and not everybody might be down to do everything, but I think it's also really great that you're being intentional about how you're connecting with and relating to people, whether it's being mindful about the activities that you choose to do, being selective about who it is you're really trying to deepen these relationships with,
Absolutely.
or even scheduling time, to
Mhm.
actually make it happen, I think is important. And I think with you being intentional, with us being intentional, it really feeds into the outcomes of divine alignment and bringing in certain energies or situations or people into our lives at the very time that we need it.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I'm very happy and very just really grateful to be able to have relationships or new relationships and have the capacity just to be there for one another because it's really what makes the world go around.
For
And
real.
get into it of just why it's so important to have social.
Yeah. Well, let's start with our official definitions. So if y'all don't know, we'll continue to talk about it, but there is officially 8 dimensions of wellness according to SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Association. 8 official, but for us, there are 10. And
Mhm.
we have come up with our own definitions for these different dimensions. And for social, we define social wellness as performing social roles effectively and comfortably within your support network to maintain healthy and encouraging relationships with peers, family, and or intimate relationships. So that's what social wellness means for us. And we'll talk about a little bit more why it's so important.
Yeah. So if you want to start it off, Lay,
Okay.
because Lay really knows just the back information, has done a lot of research, but I could add to anything that, we may have missed.
Yeah, for sure. So I feel like my background in sociology really helped me. I've always been a huge people watcher. Like I used to love riding the bus and getting on bar and just seeing people. I'm
Mhm.
the type of person that I'm really attentive to how people move, how they speak, what their patterns are, what their
Right.
behaviors are. And I just find people so intriguing. But I do want to start off on the point of from the time we're born, relationships really help us navigate the world and are critical to our human development. So research shows that a baby and a child who goes without the literal human touch can be stunted in their mental, emotional, and physical growth.
Mm-hmm.
So, if, even if babies don't experience that physical human connection, not only can it stunt their growth, but it can also put the baby at higher risk for SIDS, for sudden infant death syndrome.
Mm.
So that's why human bonding is really important. And, when you give birth, they really push parents to have that skin to skin interaction.
Yes.
And so relationships, they also impact how we interact with others. Humans are hardwired for two main things. We're hardwired our nervous system, our senses are physiologically oops, sorry. Let me put my phone on silent. Humans are hardwired for human connection. When you think about our nervous system, our senses, our physiology, psychology, not only human connection, but also safety.
Mm.
And so, with that, our senses are always looking for cues for safe human connection.
Yeah.
We cannot experience self regulation or learn how to exercise self regulation if we do not first experience co regulation.
Mm.
So, literally, human development and healing cannot happen in isolation and can only happen with being in relation to other people. So being able to build those healthy, those nourishing and supportive relationships and being able to foster the genuine connection with people around you, it contributes to our overall well-being and not only can help us heal and grow, but transform as well. And they really like the relationships that we have primarily with our caregivers as children, whether it's our parents, some people are raised by their grandparents. These impact us for our adult relationships and really influence how we seek attachment and operate in relation to others as adults.
Mm.
And so that's why sometimes, and for me, I'll just speak from my own experience, not having a father growing up and also having a mother who was super busy, always working on the weekends, partying, and, didn't really spend a lot of time connecting emotionally with her is that I think in my relationships for a long time, I had a really sort of insecure attachment style
Mm.
and would really seek out that sense of security and that sense of self-worth in my partner because I never really had that. And it took a lot of work for me to transform and relearn how I'm connecting. So it's not to say that those relationships will impact you indefinitely because we can always recondition and learn new patterns of behavior, new ways of thinking,
Yeah.
but it's work, it takes a lot of work.
Yeah. I definitely agree. I really do like talking about how sometimes it's just not as natural as to have a community or that connection versus like with somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And what it's not a lot talked about is as we grow and as we evolve, certain people that we have been connected with are just no
Yeah.
longer here. We're just not on
Mm-hmm.
the same path. And I when I was around maybe 16 or 17 when I opened up
Mm-hmm.
last episode about my mental health and my emotional health. I didn't have a set community anymore because I outgrew my group of friends around that age.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know no one I was around me that I cared for or had connections with because they just weren't there anymore.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
that was even I was older now. I was raised, with a mother and a father. My mother and I were really close. My dad as well. And I have a sister and my brothers. But for a while, I felt like I was the only child because I was the only one
Yeah.
who was living with my parents at the time. But
Right.
as soon as I turned around 16 and 17, my friendships were just gone. I kind of came back to that like really strong stress and that depression.
Mm-hmm.
I was in a state of, I don't need anybody, as I age. But
Yeah.
kind of reflecting back now as I'm entering my womanhood with a total different set of, friend group, it just really shows how much that we evolve, but that like longing for connection doesn't. Like it consistently stays with you. That
Yeah, absolutely. It's part of life. Like it
yeah.
never changes, whether we're children, whether with adults. Um, I just want to share this quote that you had added here from your research on social wellness from Cone Health
Yes.
that says people who have healthy relationships and a stronger social network tend to live longer and respond better to stress. The reduction in stress and anxiety result in a healthier endocrine system, healthier and cardiovascular functioning, and enhanced immune system.
Yeah.
And so last year I read Atlas of the Heart by Brene Brown.
Mm-hmm.
And she also shared some research that I dug up that was just really crazy to me, but is connected to this quote that you have. And so this is just about life expectancy compared to certain things in our life, right? So listen to this. Living with obesity increases or shortens our life expectancy by 20%.
Mm.
Excessive drinking lowers it by 30%. But living with loneliness increases your odds of dying early by 45%.
Wow.
And I'm glad that you pulled the piece that talks specifically about the endocrine system and the cardiovascular functioning.
Right. That's
Be-
inside.
yeah, because you know how I just kind of put together that sort of daily dose hormone hacking sheet for the office.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
A lot of the things, the hormones that are released in our body, like dopamine, oxytocin, endorphin, serotonin, if you look at all of the ways that these hormones can be released in your body, every single one of them have things connected to other people.
Mm.
Every single one of them. And the more balanced we are able to release each of these hormones in our lives, the healthier our overall physical health systems are. So, in the same way that stress can impact our bodies, so can social relationships.
Right. Yeah. Honestly, it just amazes me how bigger sometimes our emotion is and
Mm-hmm.
how it could really dive into a lot of things. Like if we're
Mm-hmm.
feeling this way, there's a whole entire deep dive into why.
Yeah, it gets deep for sure. It gets deep, hella deep.
Hella deep. And, like we said, we're really honoring the fact that sometimes social wellness isn't sexy. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it feels the most warming and loving to have, really good connections and relationships. I
Mm-hmm.
express, but I just feel so much gratitude just for the relationships I build and just, maybe I didn't grow up with a person, but some relationship I have are just the sweetest and most caring and warmest love. And
Hmm.
it's super, it's not like taboo to even talk about it either for me anymore, just because they make the world go round. They make my world go round.
Yeah, I love talking about relationships.
Yeah, it shouldn't be taboo either. We should be talking about these things. But yeah, I really want
Let's
to
go
go
into
into, yeah,
practices.
the practices. Y'all know Lay and I love us some practices just because we really want y'all to be put on.
Right. I think a lot of our series for wellness, that this is really the meat of it. Of course, we want to educate people, but wellness is a practice. Health and healing is a practice, which means we have to do things and, put in the work, take the action to make sure that we are well.
Yes, absolutely. So definitely take out your notebooks or whichever. To share with y'all. And this one really resonates with me. Just remember how I was thinking and feeling right after the holidays. So, our
Hmm.
first thing is just care for yourself while you're also caring for others.
Before.
Before or after, honestly, what,
Before and.
and honestly during, because I'm not even gonna
Right.
lie. There was a time in the holidays where, I just moved into my own place. I want to celebrate my place with other people I love. But I don't know about y'all. I'm pretty sure y'all could relate when you guys move into your own place or when you did. People just think it's the kickest spot. Like, oh, she moved into her own place. Let me just show up. She's hella cool. Like,
Like,
I
hey, we
want her to
out
cook
here.
for
We at
me. I want
Julie.
her to
We at Julie's.
exactly. And I mean, it could go for anyone, like any age at all. And I want to be there for my people and everything. But I remember there was a time where, someone kind of just invited themselves into my home. And I was like, damn, I wanted to be by myself. And I had to take care of myself while I was taking care of others. And I was like, you know what? You could have the space tonight. I was like, you could have this space tonight. I'll holla at you tomorrow morning. And I did. I left like my whole entire space just
Oh,
because
you left your house?
I left my house and I really wouldn't, want others to feel like so driven out. But at the same time, I wanted to take care of this person as well as I needed to take care of myself in that, situation in that area. So I was just like, here, you know where the water is, you know where the food is, blankets, pillows, da da da. But like, I'm gonna get out of this space because I also need to take care of myself. So yeah, it's the during, before, after, everything.
Yeah, you make a good point. I'm glad you added that during, because I think sometimes when we're in relation to others, that we neglect our no's or we neglect our boundaries for the sake of pleasing other people or for the sake of avoiding conflict. And it really is disregarding to ourselves. And then it
Yeah,
leaves us feeling resentful or
exactly.
whatever type of way. So I'm
Right.
glad you mentioned that.
Yeah.
And
So,
I think too, sometimes people will get upset
uh-huh.
when they hear a no, or when you kind of
Right.
express your boundary that you need in order to take care of yourself. I think the people who truly love and care for your well-being will be understanding.
Absolutely. And it all takes practice. I'm not just
Hmm.
gonna sit up here and be like, I know every single thing that there is. Like, no, I'm just the same as y'all. Sometimes I don't like conflict. Sometimes I don't want to, you know, have to say that thing and then have a big deep talk after. So that's what I mean about just really caring to yourself. And with that time and that practice, like we say, you'll get it on lock. You'll get it down. And sometimes you'll like have slip ups or whatever, but it's all good. But it's a huge thing of taking care of yourself and certain things that I really like to do. And we mentioned it too of getting organized. I mean, we have all these aspects in our life. I mean, shoot, we even have aspects in our wellness. So I really like to get organized. One of my homegirls, Simone, out of 2020, she showed me how to do Google Calendar. And Simone's my best friend, so we always like to make space for each other, but we're also hella busy. So she taught me
You
how to
like send that calendar invite.
send that calendar. Girl, we went so far of like I have access to her calendar, like and she has mine. But it's like get organized. I finally put up a calendar in my apartment too for like
Hmm.
E2 of just like who's doing what and what's doing what. And I really just think it really helps with when you don't, you just can't remember things all in your head. And it's actually really more intentional that way of just like writing it down or sending that Google Calendar invite. You feel me?
Yeah, that's how me and Corey organize our family calendar because, the boys, they got sports 5 days a week. We try to prioritize time for ourselves,
Yeah.
not just every day, but, also time together. And so we have certain practices we do at the beginning of the day, things that we try to do at the end of the day or throughout the day. And then, of course, date night, hello,
Hell
and
yeah.
our, trips or whatever it is.
Absolutely. And even on Google Calendar, like you can have certain calendars too. So like maybe you and your partner or me and my friend or whatever, it's separate from your actual personal one that has like all the tasks and stuff. But it's just so easy and accessible, I believe. And so you won't forget like what times or place,
Yeah.
you
It's
know.
not real in my head. It ain't real until we're locked into the calendar.
That's hella real. I feel you, dude. I feel you. It cannot do anything. So that's a real big tip. And then as well as for me, I'm a Taurus. I love to sleep. Like I said, I would rather watch a movie and kick it with you than like go out and all that kind of stuff. So I really feel like back to the basics of eating healthy foods, nutrition, sleep schedule, like it really equals energy. So you can maintain those healthy relationships or, those plans that you got in your calendar and all that.
Yeah, pouring into people
Yeah.
takes energy. It takes emotional energy, physical energy, mental energy. So whatever you got to do to take care of yourself, nourish yourself
Hmm.
before, during, and after you socialize, do that.
Do that one. Yeah. You want to take us into the next one, Lay?
Yes. So the next point that we have is just about being proactive to make meaningful connections. So not everybody always has the privilege of lifelong friends or, a big group of friends or a strong sense of community. But at the same time, we have to be proactive about cultivating that, whether it's joining some kind of group or program or some kind of hobby. For me, I can say that when I first started Wage Art and doing our sister circles, honestly, I did that because I felt like I needed friends and I felt like I needed sisterhood. Like my whole life was devoted to work and family, and my kids. So I'm like, damn, I need I need other people to be around. And like I said earlier, a lot of my closest friends are super far, but it also gave us a reason to reconnect. And, this is how I reunited with one of my closest girlfriends, Kiani, because I was like, I'm doing this thing. We're going to dance. We're going to talk. We're going to chop it up, like come through. And so it really, I would say, strengthened some of my relationships with some of my closest friends to even just initiate a space, gardening. I love that. Ooh, going earthing, doing earthy stuff, nature
Mhm.
walks, beach trips, hikes, just being outside under the sun and sun soaking together. Just something about the vibes. Like, and now I'm learning to appreciate any weather, like being outside in any weather.
Mm.
And thinking about or figuring out what it is we can do, like loving snowboarding or being on a boat, doing jet skis, beach bumming. I remember when we went on our hike in Oakland in the hills. That must have been spring or something because it was low key raining in that season.
Yeah, I think so. It was around March. It was around this time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love the idea of going to dance classes to volunteering. Did I tell you I'm about to volunteer at an organization out here?
Oh, sweet. I think
Yes, they
volunteer work
do.
is beautiful.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. I started volunteering at my church a couple months back, and that's been really different. At first, I was worried, like, damn, I'm already hella busy. I already work full time in nonprofit. Do I really want to, volunteer my time? But I will say it helped me feel connected to something bigger and
Mhm.
just made me appreciate, like the people that come to us even more.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, being proactive about making connections or going outside of your comfort zone, although I'm a huge, like, I grew up with a lot of family. My family was like my friends, but I was also longing for a connection just outside of like, the regular community that I was around and I was raised with. And I just think like volunteering or joining a group or something like that just gets you out of your comfort zone for the right growth. And, like when we said, when you're putting your intentions out, the divine alignment comes to you and
Yeah.
good friends could come out of it and good connections.
Yeah. I also want to just add one last point that you made me think about, when it comes to fostering new connections. I think that we have to move away from this whole competition, comparison
Ooh, good one.
kind of mode. And I personally think it's a good practice to surround yourself with people who are better than you and surround ourselves with people who we admire, that inspire us, who have qualities that we adore and admire and appreciate instead of being like jealous or feeling like we're not good enough next to them, because they could inspire us and they could push us and motivate us to do better, to be better, and grow in ways that we have never grown before or
Mhm.
try things that we have never done before. So that's
Yeah.
also something I want to encourage to, like,
Ooh,
even whether it's mentorship or, joining groups that are doing things that you've never done, you know what I mean, but are interested
absolutely.
in.
That you just look up to instead of, sometimes people say who you hang out with is a reflection of you. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you really just need to hang out with somebody who has a life that, is inspiring you or you want to look like.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
thought you added that. That's a really good reminder as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so then we also wanted to talk about the, what making connections on just like how to build healthy and fruitful relationships and connections that we have or we're going to have. So one of our favorite, our favorite and not so sexy things is definitely boundaries. I don't know about you, but I had some trouble with this one.
No, for real. For real, for real. It's hard.
Yeah, boundaries is really just setting that boundary is like, like you said, making a clear ask or something that's saying like it's okay or this is not okay. I should
Right.
boundaries like with that person that just came
Yeah.
up all up in my space. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but it
And
really
what
is.
I learned,
Oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Oh, what I learned, what I've learned with the practicing of boundaries is sometimes we have to be in uncomfortable situations, just like how I was, to
Yeah.
identify what we want and what we want to feel and what we like and what we don't like. And then
Yeah.
it's making that decision of putting it out there.
Right. Absolutely. And for people like us who wasn't always good at practicing boundaries, I've learned that it's important to know, number one, what are they? And
Mm,
then two, rehearse them. So in my head, I had to tell myself, okay, if XYZ happens, I'm going to respond by doing or saying XYZ, because
right.
I wasn't always used to doing that. And then it helped me prepare for those moments when things do come up. And I'm
Mhm.
like, oh, okay, I already know. You know what I mean? Instead of getting caught up and choked up and going into those autonomic responses of fight
Right.
or flight or freeze because we feel uncomfortable in those moments.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and did you want to touch on the Braving Trust by Brene Brown?
Yes, this is my second time bringing her up. I think she's taught me a lot about relationships and trust and the power of vulnerability. But she has this framework, this braving framework. It's an acronym. And I bring it up because I think exercising boundaries really helps to build trust. And I think having fruitful and healthy relationships, they need to have trust. And
Mhm.
so she just breaks down trust into 7 elements that include having boundaries, being reliable, so reliability, accountability,
Mhm.
vault, vault in the sense of like I trust that if I share a secret with you, you won't go telling everybody, right? Like that you can hold this in confidence. Integrity, which is really about choosing courage over comfort and what's right over what's fun, easy, or fast, and like practicing your values.
Yeah.
Um, non-judgment, and then also generosity, which I feel like these connect to some of the other things that you're going to bring up as well.
Right. It definitely all goes hand in hand. It definitely goes all hand
Mm-hmm.
in hand. Yeah. And that goes into nonviolent communication. We've held trainings on this. Lay has, taught me how to practice this. We have practiced this in our own personal life and our
Mm-hmm.
relations. And it's just the best thing ever, honestly. And for those who
Yeah,
don't
it's
know,
so key communication.
yeah, for those who don't know, nonviolent communication is basically the purpose is just to create connection with like everyone's needs of just safety, belonging, but also putting your needs and your actions as well as meeting them.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes with communication, like you said, maybe I don't have these boundaries and then I just go into like full blown like resentment. I'm just like, aggressive or I have just all these actions that I've been doing. But
Yeah.
non communication is basically just really being intentional on how you communicate,
Mm-hmm.
on, and then as well as accepting it and perceiving that whatever who's talking, kind of getting out of your own head a little bit and just being a human and really taking it for what it is.
Right.
And definitely we're gonna link down the Brene Brown Braving Trust link
Mm-hmm.
in nonviolent communication if y'all really want to, pick our heads about it. We'll have it hyperlinked down below of our offerings. We're gonna
Yeah.
be doing some sessions just, to put us on real quick. I did it.
Yeah.
I did a training session last week and it just went really well. And it's really
Which you did so good on.
thank you, thank you. But it's just really important, not just for personal, but as well as, in your work or if
Mm-hmm.
whatever your work may be, just nonviolent communication should always be one of the top values.
Yeah. And I just want to mention that the practice that we use is in the practice for that's coined by the Center for Nonviolent Communication.
Mhm.
And so that's the official practice that we use and that we train on. And the main 4 steps in terms of that communication is being able to name observations, name feelings, center the conversation in values, and then also make the requests for needs that you have. And so it's really about addressing conflicts, being solution oriented, and communicating in a way that holds safe space for yourself and your other person that you're talking to.
Yeah, love nonviolent communication. And that's another practice, y'all. Okay. Just to keep us
Mm-hmm.
going. One of my main things that I hold dear, close to my heart, is offering praise and be generous with it, especially within like the relationships you've been kind of always tending to. Not a lot
Mm-hmm.
of people might want to admit it, but words
It's
of
a love
affirmation.
language.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes they actually did a whole entire like psychology experiment, but like for those who get like words of affirmations or like I really loved when you did this, it's just a really beneficial outcome for your relationship, whatever it may be. And your people deserve to be praised as well as you do too.
Mm-hmm.
So just be generous with it. And it also takes you out of your own self of just like, this person really did, this thing today or is really good right now. I just sent Lay like a little Instagram thing too of like, I don't know who needs to hear this, but you're doing like really good. Da, da, da. Just something as simple as that can just go a long way. And
Mm-hmm.
one of my main things is honesty of just being yourself in any situation and being honest with maybe your values or your needs, or like if maybe I'm going out of my comfort zone, I'm still gonna, arrive myself and leave myself. Just
Mm-hmm.
because when you are not, it just leaves more space for like confusion, resentment,
Yeah,
social
right.
down. So stick to y'all. It's all good. And something that kind of goes into nonviolent communication as well is just avoid being overcritical and aggressive and judgmental. I really wanted to
Yeah.
put that in there just because it's so easy for, I don't know about y'all, but it's so easy. I have like tias and everything that actually has grown relationships just being either critical or like chismosa or just doing hella stuff, right? And sometimes when you're doing that or being critical or aggressive or judgmental, that can easily go back to you. And it's just like it's just not a good feeling to have a conversation with someone, especially if you're like being your authentic self, you're being honest, and then someone's just being like critical or aggressive and judgmental. It just goes like both ways. So I just try to like not have it at all, which is kind of difficult, but it's okay. The more practice, the more practice.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah,
last,
that's what we want to receive, and why not give that to others as well? It
yes,
doesn't feel
put
good.
out will come back in. Okay. And that goes for a lot of things. And then the last thing of just building healthy relationships is just practicing curiosity. I really like how you added this one, Lay, just because we're all evolving. This is how I'm, taking it, but we're all evolving. I
Yeah,
said my new friendships, I'm meeting them where they're at because I'm
right,
curious of, something that's different lifestyle than me or a different interest in me. And I want to just, practicing that curiosity of, maybe my friends are having new passions or new hobbies or new lifestyle changes, having that curiosity is sending them signals of I care for you and I want to be there for,
right.
your phases through life.
Hmm. Yeah, so necessary. Like who I am today may not have been who I was when I first met you.
And being very fluid like that in your relationships and your friendships can just help a lot of ways because it's just showing like I love you through whatever phase you're going through, right?
Yeah, right. And I think alongside curiosity is learning to practice vulnerability, because I think sometimes we might feel ashamed of our imperfections or our shortcomings or the mistakes that we've made. But it's okay if you're not perfect. It's okay if you made a mistake,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the more we're able to, like, it's one thing for somebody to be curious, but it's another thing for who they're being curious about to be closed off or
Exactly.
willing to be open. So I think
Exactly.
with curiosity, we have to be willing to be vulnerable and keep it real about the good and the bad.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the last thing, so just the last point that I wanted to bring in is about kids. This is a really big part of my social wellness as a mother. I will say it's definitely one of I call it my biggest blessing and biggest burden to be a mother. Like in a lot of ways, my kids have helped me grow and helped me transform and really motivated me to heal and to be better. But also in a lot of ways, like it burns me out and it tires me and it's so exhausting. But they're so important to me. And I feel like it's also such an honor and a privilege to be their mother. You know, like God chose me to bring them into this world, and that's not a responsibility I take lightly. So this one is for the parents or even for the folks who have little ones, little sisters, little siblings. The
Mhm.
first point I want to make is to really do our best in being a role model, but still keep it real, you know, like use it as an opportunity to be your best and to continuously strive to becoming better, especially because, you know, there's a social mirror theory um that people kind of subconsciously imitate certain gestures or speeches or patterns or attitudes, and I think this comes up the most with children and their caregivers or the adults in their home. And so I think that's really important. Number two, with kids, especially me raising boys and knowing and understanding toxic masculinity, is teaching my kids how to articulate their emotions by first validating their emotions and naming them when I see it, so that they can then learn that it's okay to have these emotions, but it's a matter of how you address it, right? And a lot of times I see parents and adults tell kids, like, stop acting like that, or you're crying for no reason, when clearly something is upsetting them, you know? And so I really try to support my kids in developing emotional intelligence by articulating their feelings if they don't know how, and then validating them for them before I kind of work with them to figure out solutions and addressing the problem.
Mhm. Mhm.
I think with kids too, that giving them age appropriate agency is so necessary for their growth and development so that they can learn how to make decisions on their own and to do things on their own. Like, I don't want to make every single decision for them or do everything for them. So as they get older, there are certain options that I give them that I feel like, is appropriate. Like, I might let them pick what they want for snack, or I have them help me design the menu for the week. As long as it's age appropriate. And then the last point that I want to make with kids and having social wellness in that area is really prioritizing connection and praise. So, you know how I told you earlier that I have four main things that I do for my self care every single day. The fourth thing that is on my list is based on what my goals are. And right now, my priority is really building the routine up with my home and my family and strengthening the connection and bonds, the love bonds and relationships I have with my family in the home. So every single day, I'm prioritizing connection and praise. So, I have a checklist, like a checkbox I have for my partner and a checkbox I have for my kids. So with them, as busy as we get every night, I'm making sure I try my best to have story time with them. And we talk about our day. We read books that they choose. We talk about, they share with me what they went through. I share with them. And then I also make sure that I'm constantly affirming them at the very least at night. Like, I really like how you did this today, or I really appreciated how you did this
Mhm.
today. And I'm noticing that it's really having a positive impact on their behavior and them listening. So it's working, y'all.
Yep, the praises do work. Nice.
Yeah,
I really like this. And I really do think the being a role model and actually all the things that you stated can really just go for a lot of
hmm,
folks. And
yeah,
I really do. The role model part is, people look up to us, whatever the age is that
right.
you are a role model. And just like, Lay and I will say these things to y'all, but we also have to practice them ourselves and the people who are
Yes,
around us, whether it's our kids, our family members, our friends. We
absolutely.
are, their role models at the end of the day because we're spending some time with them and they're looking at us and how we move. So that's just
Absolutely.
another thing to, not just have you alone and isolate yourself, but you really are doing a lot of work, not just for yourself, but the others around you.
Hmm. Yeah, so necessary. Ooh, juicy episode. Juicy episode.
That's our social wellness, y'all.
Yes, social wellness. So we'll be following up with an article for folks in a couple weeks so that you can just kind of tune in for our readers. If you're not much of a listener, have trouble with YouTube, we'll
Yeah.
have one on the third Friday of the month about social wellness. So stay tuned for that, as well as our first Friday episode in April.
Yes. And definitely follow us on Instagram at BabePeace510 or check out our website that will be linked down below, babepeace.org. And we'll definitely be back with more videos.
Yes, peace, y'all. Gonna get liberated.